The thing hovering near your ear at dusk is bigger than any mosquito you have seen before. Body thin as a black wire, wings wider than your thumbnail, legs trailing behind it like fine thread. Your hand is already moving. Stop. What you are about to kill is not a mosquito that bites. It cannot bite you. Its mouth parts are curved downward, physically incapable of piercing human skin. The animal you have spent your life fearing as a giant version of the creature that ruins every summer is, in biological fact, the one insect that spends its entire larval life hunting and killing the mosquitoes that do. Scientists have known this for decades. The myth moves faster than the correction. The creature most people call the giant mosquito, or the mosquito hawk, belongs to a genus called Toxorhynchites. It is the largest mosquito on Earth. It has never, across its entire evolutionary existence, drawn blood from a human being. That part tends to stop people. And yet you find them in the same outdoor spaces where Aedes aegypti breeds and multiplies. You register the size difference and your brain does what brains do. Bigger means more dangerous, more to fear. Your whole life, the creature least likely to harm you has paid for the reputation of the ones that do. Every summer, across millions of backyards, the wrong insect dies. If this story is touching your heart, take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. And if a woman in your family came west with nothing and built a home, share her name in the comments. I read every one. The name Toxorhynchites comes from the Greek for curved beak. Every part of what makes this insect recognizable, its size, its gently arching proboscis, the slow, deliberate way it moves compared to a biting mosquito, comes from the same evolutionary pressure. It developed a different survival strategy entirely. The body itself is larger than anything in the biting mosquito family, sometimes reaching nearly half an inch in length, with wings that catch light differently than any other mosquito you will encounter. Adult Toxorhynchites drink nectar, moving flower to flower, drawing sugar from garden plants, tree blossoms, and overripe fruit. They have no need for blood, because they do not need protein from a blood meal to develop eggs. Their biology works differently. The female does not require blood at all. She can lay fertile eggs on nectar alone, something no biting mosquito species is capable of. That difference in biology is where the real story begins. Toxorhynchites larvae hatch inside the same standing water where other mosquitoes breed. Tree holes, containers left in the yard, old tires, clogged gutters, flower pots with shallow water pooled at the bottom. But Toxorhynchites larvae are not waiting there to mature into adults. They are hunting. From the moment they hatch, Toxorhynchites larvae are predators. They eat other insect larvae, prioritizing the larvae of Aedes aegypti, the mosquito responsible for transmitting dengue fever, yellow fever, and Zika. A single Toxorhynchites larva, across the course of its development, can consume between 100 and 300 other mosquito larvae before it pupates. Researchers at the United States Department of Agriculture began studying Toxorhynchites in earnest during the 1970s, investigating whether they could control Aedes aegypti populations without chemical pesticides. Field trials were conducted in Hawaii, where invasive mosquito species had become a serious public health concern. The results were clear enough that USDA biocontrol research programs continued into the 1980s, tracking container breeding sites before and after Toxorhynchites introduction, and finding reductions in Aedes larvae within a single season. The World Health Organization included Toxorhynchites in its formal review of biological mosquito control methods. Scientists in Trinidad, Thailand, and Indonesia documented natural populations of predatory larvae suppressing breeding sites in ways that chemical treatments reached only temporarily. None of that traveled far enough to correct the mistake already embedded in language. When someone calls an insect a mosquito, every instinct fires at once. Mosquito means itching. Mosquito means the buzzing that kept you awake in July. Mosquito means kill it before it lands. Size amplifies the reaction. The bigger the mosquito, the logic goes, the worse the bite. Toxorhynchites does not fit that logic. Anatomical studies of Toxorhynchites rutilus, the subspecies most common in the eastern United States, confirmed what field researchers across the tropics had documented for years. The adult's proboscis is so curved and so specifically shaped for reaching into flower structures that it is mechanically incapable of the angle required to pierce human skin. There is no version of the story where Toxorhynchites bites you. The insect is not showing restraint. It is not avoiding you out of gentleness. The mouth part itself cannot complete the motion. You were never the target. The whole encounter, every time you felt threatened by a large, slow mosquito hovering at the edge of your light, was a misread situation. The animal was passing through. If you're still with us on this porch, do this story a kindness. Hit subscribe and turn on the bell. These quiet stories don't get told if you don't share them. Tag someone who loves a true frontier story in the comments. Let them know we're telling these the way they deserve to be told. What you were actually looking at, across every summer of your life, was an animal in the middle of its adult feeding cycle. Toxorhynchites adults live only a few weeks. They spend that time moving between flowering plants, laying eggs near standing water, so their larvae can do the hunting the next generation requires. If you have ever noticed one hovering near a bird bath or a flower pot, that is not a threat assessment. That is a mother placing her eggs in the one location where her offspring will have an immediate food source. The larvae that hatch from those eggs begin hunting Aedes mosquito larvae within hours. The cost of the misidentification is not abstract. Every Toxorhynchites killed in a backyard is a hunt that does not happen. A single adult female would have laid eggs near standing water that her larvae would clear of Aedes. One container, one tree hole. The predator is gone before the cycle starts. Aedes aegypti needs very little standing water to breed. A bottle cap holds enough. The hollow of a fence post holds enough. Researchers studying dengue transmission in urban areas found that container breeding sites, the same sites Toxorhynchites larvae prefer, were responsible for the majority of Aedes populations in residential neighborhoods. The predator and the prey share the same habitat. Remove the predator and the prey fills the space. There is a subspecies in the American Southeast called Toxorhynchites rudulus, identifiable by metallic blue and violet coloring, with legs banded in white at the joints. It is, by any reasonable measure, a beautiful insect. Up close, the thorax shimmers. The wings are longer than those of any biting mosquito it shares a yard with. People who stop long enough to look at one before killing it often describe the same reaction. They did not expect it to be beautiful. The reaction is usually the same anyway. Something large with mosquito in the name gets treated like the threat it resembles, not the one it actually is. The confusion moves through the same channel that built it. Someone sees a large mosquito-shaped insect, tells someone else, and the story takes the shape of the fear rather than the biology. The creature becomes enormous, aggressive, capable of biting through fabric. The fact that it cannot bite at all does not travel with the story, because that detail requires stopping the fear response long enough to hear it. Research conducted in Singapore in the early 2000s examined whether Toxorhynchites releases could form part of an integrated dengue control strategy in residential areas. Toxorhynchites larvae were introduced into container breeding sites in urban neighborhoods, and Aedes populations were monitored over a 12-week period. In treated containers, larval Aedes populations dropped sharply compared to untreated controls. The predatory larvae were most effective in the small, neglected containers that chemical treatments missed. The insect people kill on site was being deliberately placed into neighborhoods to protect residents from dengue. The instinct that reaches for the shoe the moment something large and mosquito-shaped appears removes the one predator capable of working where sprays and foggers cannot reach. Aedes breeds in container water too small to notice. Foggers cover open air. They do not reach the water pooled inside an old plant pot, or the hollow in a fence post, or the folded leaves at the base of a garden plant. Toxorhynchites larvae do. The next time something large and slow and hovering moves through your yard at dusk, look at the proboscis before you decide. If it curves downward, pointing toward the ground, you are looking at Toxorhynchites. It is not hunting you. It is looking for a place to leave larvae that will spend the next several weeks hunting the mosquitoes that are. The genus has existed for tens of millions of years, its lineage separating from biting mosquito ancestors, long before the ecological split that produced its current biology. It has never needed blood. It was never designed for the role people assigned it. Every summer, across the American South, Southeast Asia, West Africa, and Australia, natural populations of Toxorhynchites work through the nights near standing water in backyards, tree holes, and neglected containers. Researchers monitoring dengue risk in areas with healthy Toxorhynchites populations have noted consistent reductions in Aedes breeding pressure at the container level. The work happens unassisted, in the dark, recognized by almost no one. The insect you spent your life trying to kill was never the problem. It was the answer the problem came with. Once you know that, you do not forget it, and you stop reaching for the shoe. Thank you for staying until the last word. If this story moved you, the next one is already up on your screen. Go give it a watch. And if you haven't yet, subscribe and join the porch. We're telling stories about women who carried more than the world ever knew. See you in the next one.